Welcome to the HerbWorks podcast featuring Roger Drummer, the formulator at herbworks.com. An educator in the field of nutrition and Chinese herbalism, Roger has a unique ability to keep things simple by taking all the guesswork out of complicated health issues. HerbWorks is committed to helping you improve your health and enhance your life through herbs and common sense.
Roger Drummer here with another HerbWorks podcast. The topic today is creating miracles. I know that probably sounds really strange because miracles are things that just happen. Isn't that right? Don't miracles just happen to people and they don't have any control over it? It's just something that just happens out of the blue. That's why it's called a miracle. Well, in my opinion, you can actually create miracles because miracles are simply creating the energetic position to have one happen in the first place. And why do I call it an energetic position? Because human beings are energetic beings. We have a physical body that responds to an energy body that responds to the energy in the environment or the universe, whatever you want to call it. And everything is a result of how balanced your energy is. I talk about stress all the time. And why is that? Is because stress is the number one thing that disconnects you from a balanced state of energy. And in that disconnection, all your organs, glands, in fact, every single thing in your body misses out on its instructions to be able to function at its optimum level. And so your body suffers. Your body loses all kinds of just normal, natural functions because you're disconnected through stress. Once you relax and have a happy moment, your entire body just shifts and it hooks back up energetically to everything around it. It's able to receive and give signals to the environment. Everything changes for you. You know, we often think that, it's all in our head. It's all our brain energy. We think happy thoughts. Good things happen. Well, a happy thought is really just your brain responding to something in its environment around it. Again, what if every neuron firing in your brain is a result of an energy pattern that's moving in an energy field outside of your brain? Think about that. Stress, the big thing with stress, and everybody knows this, with your digestion, is that once you're stressed out, you lose about 50% of your digestive energy. Now, why is that? Well, it's because when you're stressed out, your body knows that it doesn't need the energy to digest your food when it's worried about survival. It thinks you're locked in a battle for, to the death, a battle where you're either going to have to run away or fight to the finish. And so it's not going to bother putting any energy into digestion. Well, when you think about that energetically, anybody can tell if they could measure your energy field around you. And there's a lot of ways to do that. I was just at a conference downtown where they could hook you up to a machine and see your entire energy field within seconds. And so, but if you're completely stressed out, your energy field is so distorted and there's so many places where it's just not hooked up. And the moment you relax, the entire energy shifts and it becomes something else. So you have this ability, your body has this ability and its energy field to shift at any moment into a different state, whether it's a state of being shut down, as it is normally during stress, and where your physical body responds to that by shutting off your digestion, shutting off your immune system, blocking pathways in your brain, emitting certain hormones that floods your body with sugar, basically putting you into an alarm state that's very constricted. Your energy is very constricted, and it's ready to do one specific thing, which is protect you. Or you can shift immediately into a different relaxed state where everything in your body is flowing. Everything's connected. Every organ, gland, cell in your body is hooking up to its blueprint and getting the proper instructions on how it's supposed to function. This is the beauty of taking things like Tian Chi or adaptogenic herbs, inner peace, because it relaxes your nervous system and not only has great nutritional benefits, but it hooks you up to your full experience of the environment around you. So your body, and this goes back to creating miracles, by the way. I haven't forgot the topic here. This is how you create miracles. You get in an energetic position to allow them to happen. Now, I know everybody's probably out there has read stories about people being in just complete, utter stress and feeling abandoned and suffering extreme, things from health problems and almost dying, and all of a sudden something shifts. They get a different idea, they relax, and a miracle happens. Their health issue goes away immediately. Well, that's the other way you can create miracles. So I'm going to go over a few ways to create miracles. The first one is being in an energetic position to have it happen. The other one is just total surrender. And that's what I just described with someone who may be, lost and dying and suffering so much that they finally just give up and relax. And then through the grace of God, their energy shifts so much that their body just throws off whatever they have going on. I wouldn't wait for that one to happen. That's a little late in the game to be laying there hoping that happens for you, because it doesn't happen quite often. But in my opinion, you can create miracles. I've done it myself. I just talked to a friend who created a miracle in his life. And these are miracles that, believe me, modern medicine just doesn't think can possibly happen. And yet they have. And I'll go over that too today. So miracles are simply natural if you create the environment for it to happen. Now, creating that environment could, be something like changing your diet radically, meditation, prayer. Meditation has a big part of this. And prayer is really meditation. Only we think of prayer as sitting down and saying a couple things, asking for a couple items we want, being real quiet for a minute or two and moving on in the day. But prayer, really done right, is a form of meditation. Meditation usually seems to be a longer experience where you're just sitting there quietly. And even though you're trying not to think, we basically know why you're sitting there. You want something to happen. And it cracks me up in science. They'll always go, you have to meditate because meditation has been shown to increase serotonin. Well, you know why that happens? It's not because your brain gets in a completely different state and then it just makes more serotonin or any of these other ideas they come up with in science, but it's just the reality is that your body makes serotonin. Your body knows how to make serotonin at the proper level of serotonin that it needs at every single moment. And why don't you? Well, for two simple reasons. One, you don't eat the right type of food so you can produce it. Most serotonin is made in your gut. And like I just said, if you're stressed out, 50% of that energy is shut off. And if you're stressed out and you're like most people who don't pay attention to nutrition anyway, you eat worse when you're stressed out, because most people, unless they have a program that they've put into effect and they know they're going to eat certain nutritious food all the time, and that's the way they stock their house, as soon as they get stressed, they just go for candy bars, cookies, and beer and pizza, because basically those sugar-loaded foods make them feel differently very quickly. And so that's why we love them when we're stressed. We want to feel different. We're stressed out. We don't like the way we feel, so we're going to do something that changes it right away. Long term, none of that's really good for you. But in reality, when you sit down to meditate, the reason that you make more serotonin is because your body knows how to do it. And once you relax, your digestion fully turns on. Your brain energy completely changes. You know the glands that I talk about all the time with the stress response, the HPA axis, the hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal, those glands actually hook up with different energy centers in your brain. The hypothalamus and pituitary have to do with something that in India they call your ajna, or third eye. It's in your forehead between your eyes. And another gland, which, is called the pineal gland, which is associated with something they call the crown. in India. So it's an energetic system that has to do with your glandular system, and it's what connects you to other dimensions of energy around your body. Now, you can poo-hoo that, but people have been talking about it for 5,000 years. It's real. People just don't want to accept it because they can't see it. But believe me, if that was true about everything, you wouldn't accept electricity, you wouldn't accept sound, you wouldn't accept a lot of different things. You couldn't accept the concept of wind because you can't see that either. So the reality is that there's a lot of things going on that have been documented for thousands of years in meditation and in spiritual literature that is now being proven out by quantum physics. And so it's all true. You have energy centers in your brain.
This podcast is brought to you by Herbworks, specializing in stress and brain essentials. Check out Roger's other articles and videos at herbworks.com. While you're there, take a look at our natural herbal-based product line for energy, stress, immunity, and sleep. Now back to Roger.
So anyway, back to your HPA axis. It's really exciting to me, or it's amazing to me that the same glands that run your stress response are the ones that have to do with opening up your brain and relaxing your entire energy body and hooking up to the energy fields around you. So when your hypothalamus and pituitary are locked into a stress response and your brain drops down into the lower part of it and it's just in survival mode, fight or flight, that means the part of your brain that hooks you up to your higher potential, energetically and physically, your higher potential is shut off because you're stressed out. So you're not connected at all when you're stressed out. And this is why it's so hard to break that pattern and to see the bigger picture, because your brain's just not set up to do it. It can't do that in that state of energy unless you have a total meltdown and surrender, and then your whole energy field shifts and your brain opens up. So how do we do this every day in a logical manner so that we're in a position to have something happen? Well, one way is you take herbs. Adaptogens are great because they regulate your stress response. They allow you to have it, and then they allow you to move on. There's nothing wrong with having stress. It's your inability to recover from it or realize you're in it that makes it bad. But once you have your stress response and you move out of it, your body should just flip the switch and go right back into a different pattern of energy. As long as you're eating well and you've created this experience or knowledge that it can actually happen, that there's a bigger way of looking at things, there's a more broad way of looking at your life or whatever situation you're in, it's easier to return to that pattern and to move on. So you're creating an environment when you eat a diet and take herbs and supplements that positively affect you, so that it makes it easier for your body to transition in and out of states of low energy or stress and higher energy of being in a position of pleasure and seeing the bigger picture and experiencing life differently. That's how you create an energetic environment for something to happen. Now, in terms of just for disease, in my case, and I'll give you my case and my friend's case because it's pretty exciting to me. These both happened in the last couple of years, but I've had experiences like this for the last, I'd say 20 years or so, of knowing people that did something differently that just changed their internal environment a little bit, and they had what was considered to be a miracle happen in their life, or a miracle that Western medicine, just deemed impossible to have happen. In my own case, it was cancer. I had stage 3 bladder cancer. I was told the only way that you can deal with that, there's only one treatment. I had to have my bladder removed, my prostate removed, and they had to take my intestines and make a new bladder out of it and hope that it worked. And I was looking at that situation. It's at least a 12-hour surgery or so, and a lifetime of having to deal with not having those two parts of my body in a new bag. So I went home, and even though I ate a really good diet, it was not supporting me energetically for what I needed to do. So I needed to change it. I had to be willing to change my good diet into something that I thought would create an environment for something else to happen. And so I chose the ketogenic diet. And that diet, which is based on raising your ketones, regulating your sugar, had a physical effect of actually shutting off the food supply to cancer. So that was like my base thing that I was going to do. I was going to create this diet, which naturally, it didn't attack my cancer. It just removed its food. So it was starving it out. And so that was the basis of my whole idea of what I was going to do. But I actually felt I had a spiritual disease. So there was a hole in my energy field and I needed to fix it. And that hole in my energy field was related to how I express myself in life. I'm kind of introverted. And so I'm part of this little idealistic 1% of the population that, feels really comfortable expressing himself every year or two on a variety of topics. And so I needed to change that. I needed to get out in the world and express myself a little bit. I needed to make more podcasts. I needed to do something to get myself out into the world. And so I started to change that, but I also changed my meditation to where I didn't just sit there and do a certain exercise, but I added this prayer in, which was just being grateful. It just had to do with being grateful that I had this illness and that I was able to learn from it and that I already knew it was going away. And I would thank, the universe for taking it away and allowing me to learn all this wonderful stuff I was learning. So, that sounds a little crazy, but within probably less than 2 months, I always say 7 weeks, but it's not exact. I didn't sit down and think, I'm going to start this today, and because I'm going to be talking about it on a podcast that I haven't created yet, and I'm going to be talking about it in a book that I haven't thought of yet, I'm going to document everything I did. But the reality is, in less than 2 months, my cancer was gone. I went in to have a biopsy to see how bad my cancer had progressed to set me up for radical surgery, and they could not find anything. And so now it's basically almost exactly 2 years since that happened. I've been in for my yearly checkups. I have absolutely nothing going on with cancer. And my doctor, every time he sees me, he just smiles and shakes his head because he says he has no explanation for what I did. But what did I do? I changed my environment, my physical, energetic environment, and put myself in a position to have something happen. Now, the ketogenic diet was more about the physical part, but the physical part, really, your physical body is just energy anyway. But it changed the way that I interacted with my environment. It even made my meditations better because it changes the energy of your brain, and it made me more open to things. So there was all this flowing combination of everything that I did that put me in a position to have a miracle happen. And when it happened, I knew the exact moment that it happened. Now that people will probably just think I'm crazy, but the reality is I was told, because through my own higher intuition, that my cancer was gone. I went out and told my wife. She looked at me like I was insane. I told my sister. People stopped talking to me. And so I went in 3 weeks later to have my biopsy, and I was just as happy as I've ever been in my life. And I had the greatest time going in to have minor surgery biopsy, and came out and they told me there's nothing wrong with me anymore. So that was my experience. Now, again, what did I do? I went home and radically changed everything I was doing and created a different energetic environment to match up with what I thought I was missing to allow something magical to happen. Now, I just had a friend call me the other day. You'll love this story too because it's very similar to mine. I don't know what meditation he did, but I do know he's been going to church quite regularly. He has his whole life. And this friend called me 3 months ago, and he had a big problem. He had a prostate that looked like it had a really bad, fast-growing cancer. And he had spots all over it that they wanted to do biopsies on. And so he went home and he started a 9-day fast. and which is a pretty radical fast. He probably had a few hundred calories a day, but it was pretty radical fast, mostly water. And in case you're wondering why that's important, fasting, if you have cancer, can be one of the most powerful healing techniques you ever put into practice. Because what happens is when your body just doesn't have any food going into it, it actually goes into a mode of repairing itself. And magical things happen after 48 hours with no food. And magical things really happen after 5 days with no food. And if you can go 9 days, it's supposedly amazing things happen. In fact, I have heard it said that you could either fly to Thailand and have $100,000 stem cell therapy done, or you could just drink water for 9 days and nothing else. And it'll do the exact same thing as far as stimulating the growth of new stem cells. And stem cells will fix things, grow new cells, just basically overhaul your entire system, right? So besides that, when you're fasting, your body kicks in this process called autophagy, which basically means that you become a recycler. You recycle old damaged cells, and cancer is an old damaged cell. And you recycle these things, break it down, use the parts that are usable to make new cells and new parts, and you basically flush it out of your system. So anyway, my friend did a 9-day fast, and he started eating some herbs I told him about, some herbs he found by himself, and he started reading a lot, changed his diet, went on the ketogenic diet. He didn't get as radical as I did. I got into radical medical ketosis, and he got into nutritional ketosis. And the difference in that is your levels of ketones and your levels of blood sugar. But he got into nutritional ketosis, and he just stayed on that. He lost like 30 pounds. He felt really good. Called me up the other day and said he went in for his biopsy. He had to do an MRI before his biopsy to, his checkup right beforehand so they can see all the spots that they're going to do biopsies on. And the guy came out and told him, you know what? I can't find anything on your prostate. Why don't you just go home and maybe call me back in a year, and we'll see if anything's going on then. So this friend of mine called me. He said, Roger, every cell in my body is singing with joy, right? Because here he was talking to me about radiation and chemotherapy and all this stuff, and he didn't know what to do. And then he just went home and he changed his energetic environment. He changed everything that he ate and prayed, and look what happened. He doesn't have to do anything. And besides that, he says he hasn't felt this good in decades. He's lost 30 pounds. He's never weighed this same weight for 30 years or so. He just feels fantastic, right? And the other surprising thing was that he shared with me that a friend of his at church had the exact same diagnosis as him, and he just went in and had his surgery and radiation, and the guy just feels horrible, and he just looks like death, because he's had such radical treatments to his system. And he is so grateful that he just went the route he did and that he had this amazing thing happen. And that doesn't mean that it'll happen every time, but you know what? He was willing to put himself into an environment that was different, and he actually trusted it. Trust is an amazing thing. It has an amazing effect on your energy field too. To be in that position of trust and gratitude has an amazing effect on how you connect to the universe around you and energy, and allows you to be in an energetic position to have a miracle happen. So, these things happen because this is how the universe is set up. Your whole world, you think it's just about, the physical things you see and the matter you see, the cars you drive, the job you have, everything that goes on. But this entire universe is set up on an energetic grid. And a lot of things that you're going to experience depend on how you're hooked into that grid. And you have an energy field around you that basically can change every single second of the day. And you can be having a response that's just makes you look radiant, or makes you look like the guy in Pigpen in the Peanuts comic strip, the guy that's walking down the street with the little cloud of dust that follows him down the street all the time. That's the analogy I always think about when I think of someone with bad energy. They're walking down the street and there's literally a cloud of dust around them, a black cloud. And, people can feel that. If you meet somebody and you just feel icky, it's because of their energy field. And, you should know that the reason you know that is because you're sensitive to energy. Most people think they aren't, but everybody reads people's energy all day long. People can feel good when somebody walks in a room. Now, how is that possible? They haven't talked to them. They haven't done anything, but no, somebody walked in the room. It's the energy that they put off. So the whole universe is set up on this grid of energy, and it's in constant movement. So this energy is constantly moving, and depending on your thoughts and your behaviors and what you're doing at all times, even what you eat, determines how well you're hooked into that and how well you're actually utilizing that energy. And so clean food, clean thoughts, happy things, getting involved with things that just make you feel good, completely change your energy. Sitting down and praying can shift your energy field so radically. It's just the idea of sitting down, or the action of sitting down and praying over your food, completely changes the energy field of your food and your energy field completely. And it takes less than 10 seconds. All these things have an effect. And what are you doing when you're doing that? Besides expressing gratitude, you're putting yourself in an energetic position to have a different experience. Feeling good isn't just a brain chemical. Feeling good is how your field around you creates the environment for your neurons to fire a different way and to create the chemicals that can be measured that they'll say is the reason why you actually feel good. Now, I know it takes a while to let that one sink in. It's not the chemicals that you're creating in your brain that sends a signal out from it that tells your energy field to change. It's the opposite way. Although having those chemicals produced will keep sustaining that energy field. But it's, we usually have things backward when we think of healing. The first thing I ever learned when I studied energy healing, and this is clear back in the early 90s, was that everything that happens to you health-wise happens in your energy field a long time before it ever manifests in your physical body. And that every disease is simply a blockage of energy. Now that might sound odd to you, but you know what? Chinese medicine is based on the idea that everything that's happening in your body is a blockage of energy. That's what acupuncture is all about. You think acupuncture is just hooking up your physical body and that there's a pathway in your body somewhere that the needles are hooking up. And this is kind of how the easiest way to describe acupuncture really is just that it's like a electrician comes to your house. Let's say all of a sudden your one room the electricity doesn't work, and you find out you had a squirrel in the wall somewhere and it chewed a couple wires. Well, you have this amazing electrical system set up in your house. There's nothing really wrong with it other than that one little spot where a squirrel chewed through a wire, but nothing works in the entire one section of your house. Now the electrician comes in, hooks that wire up, seems like a miracle. The whole thing lights up. The lights clear on one side of the room are lit up. Everything's working again because he hooked the energy flow back up in your house. Acupuncture does the same thing. They're putting needles all around your body and allowing energy to run from a place where there's too much of it stuck somewhere to a place where there's none there because it's been blocked. And then once it starts moving around, your body just kind of comes into sync and it starts to deal with its own health issues, right? Well, in reality, and this might be very shocking or scary to some people, but what they're actually doing with that acupuncture is hooking you up to the energy around your physical body. It's hooking up to the patterns of energy around you so that your organs and glands start functioning differently. Those meridians might not even be in your physical body. They might just be pathways that are coming from the energy around you and that your body uses to read its own blueprints on how to actually function. I know that's a little out there, but in reality, that's what's happening. So it's all about connecting. It's all about being hooked up to the universe around you. And the main thing that disconnects you from all of this is stress. Because once you've dropped into fight or flight, you're completely disconnected from any instructions that your body is supposed to get to function. Now, it doesn't mean you can't function, but what it means is everything's operating at about half the energy it's supposed to. And in that state, any type of disease can develop because your body's just not only not getting instructions, but it's running suboptimally. Same thing happens when you don't have nutrition for a long period of time. Your physical body needs physical nutrition, and if it doesn't get it, it can't follow the instructions around it or what it's supposed to do because it just doesn't have the right chemical makeup to do things. So there's all different ways that you get disconnected from the universe and the way your body starts going down a path where it's been in balance for a long period of time and then it creates a disease. Now with me, I corrected mine in less than 2 months. I had an experience right on an exact moment, and I was told when mine actually changed and it happened, and a miracle happened. But I've had many instances where things happen where you might not think they're miraculous, but the person that had it happen thought it was miraculous. Just the other day, I had a phone call from someone who buys my Tianqi, and his wife was taking it, and she had a certain medical condition that caused her to not have a menstrual cycle for many, many years. And she took the packets for 20 days and had a menstrual cycle. And now they're thinking that they might be able to have children. And so that's an amazing thing. That's almost, to them, it's probably a miraculous thing. And yet to me, that's not a miracle. That's simply giving a body something that it's been missing, and the body creating the miracle itself of just going back to functioning the way it was supposed to function. This happens a lot in Chinese tonic herbalism, the type of herbalism I practice, where you put tonic herbs, which are food-grade herbs, that are designed to strengthen weaknesses or deficiencies, into a body that's just deficient. Stress makes you deficient, poor diets make you deficient, just not getting enough sleep makes you overstressed, makes you more deficient. And so tonic herbs, to a lot of people that are worn out, are basically like pouring water on a plant that hasn't had any water for 2 weeks. That plant can be drooped over and look like you should be throwing it away. And 4 hours later, it's starting to stand up straight because it simply was deficient in something it needed. And that's kind of how I look at tonic herbs. I've had, besides this client, who in 20 days got their menstrual cycle back, which is a huge deal because that's part of your reproductive system. And let's face it, your reproductive system is the basis of life. It really has to do with your life force and determines your longevity and quality of life. All these things are dependent on a healthy adrenal glandular system, reproductive system. And so that's a huge deal. I've had a client once who supposedly went through menopause when she was 36 years old, and through taking some Chinese tonic herbs, a few months later, got her cycle back, got married, had kids. I mean, if you don't think that's a miracle, you should ask her. That's a miracle. I've had people that had so many instances of that happen where things completely changed. I had a client who thought she had lupus and was so stressed out and, ready to just give up. And I gave her some herbs, and it was all her symptoms and traces of it was gone within a couple months. And that is because I don't really think she had it, but that's the symptoms and the symptomology she manifested that was tested in Western medicine. And yet she was just extremely worn out and had no energy in her body and manifested all this internal heat and redness and everything that matched up with a lupus diagnosis. So there's all kinds of things that happen when you put the right amount of stuff in your body, the type of stuff that your body actually needs. In fact, if there's anything we're finding out in alternative medicine, I hate that term because alternative medicine is actually real medicine, and we're finding out with diets, we're finding out with stress, we're finding out with all these natural approaches to healing, is that your body has this amazing capacity to correct almost anything it has going on, as long as you quit putting in it the things that ruin its ability to work. That could be food allergies, could be just lack of nutrition in your food, could be just not dealing with your mental, emotional stress every day. All these different things that disconnect you from the energy around you and don't give your body what it needs to actually function. Again, this is why fasting works so well. Your body has nothing in its way to correct itself. And this is why low-carb ketogenic diets make such a huge impact on radical diseases like diabetes and cancer, because you've removed the food supply to these particular illnesses, and they could just die out on their own. I've always felt, last 15 years, that type 2 diabetes was not an actual disease, that it was simply your body responding the exact way it's supposed to the energetic environment that you have created because of the type of the food that you eat. And if you want to create a different environment and get rid of it, just change your diet. And in that instance, to a very, a low carb, more of a fat-based diet that regulates your blood sugar. And then your body just responds in a completely different way. So really, this creating miracles, what we're talking about today, is just about how amazing that we all are as human beings, because we have this ability to create miracles, to change our environment at any single time that changes our response to the entire universe around us. And oftentimes, that is just what you need to change your internal response, which will then change whatever disease state that you think you're manifesting, and you think it's related to your genetics and you're related to things that are out beyond your control. Very few things are beyond your control when you have the ability and the desire, the willpower to actually change your environment and put yourself in an energetic position to have an experience. So that's Creating Miracles. This is Roger Drummer with another HerbWorks podcast. And if you like this information and you want more, just go to herbworks.com.